Hi, welcome back to Design and Tech Co, and this is your host Akhil. Today we're talking about some ways how you can hire for your startup. So if you're a startup owner, then this is a video that's little important for you. And now let's understand what startup employees how they function. So startup employees are very different from your regular employees who go to corporate firms. Startup employees have intrinsic motivation and they look for meaning in their work, and they have a sense of satisfaction, so they need to do work which makes sense every single day. And they're not people who are just interested in logging a couple of hours in the office and just forgetting about their work and just going through the drudgery. These people just don't fit in to that kind of a culture, and they need a culture that's spontaneous, that has a lot of innovation around it, that does not necessarily puts them into boxes, or ties them up with processes or approvals. So they need more freedom, they need more open kind of an environment and open kind of a culture. That's what they are looking for. And they don't want to be put into a box. They don't want to be their powers to be taken. They want complete freedom and authority. Those are startup employees. Now if you want to hire for a startup, it can be very challenging, especially if you were doing a job with a corporate before, and you're used to how these corporate organizations function, and you're thinking that probably those are the kind of people you want in your company. For example, you might be thinking that a person who's very good academically, he could be a good fit for your startup. That's what you may be thinking, because that's the kind of things that a big organization would look for. But that's not true. And for startups, let's look at about 13 points how you can hire better for a startup company. The first is understand where they stand on the Briggs-Myers test. So now this is a 16-part personality test, where you're able to understand where the person stands and what kind of a mix of personality does he have, what kind of personality traits does he have. Is he a little emotional, or does he think a lot, and or is he logical, is he sentimental? So you are able to understand what kind of a mix he is, and then plot him against what Briggs-Myers suggests as people who like innovation and who are able to work in those kind of cultures. So match it against that, map it against that, and then check whether the people who you've taken the test for, who have applied to your company, if they are the right fit based on the Briggs-Myers personality test. Second is give them an assignment with a tight deadline, and or an unrealistic assignment, to check whether they're able to perform under pressure. So with startups, as it's not only important to get the tasks done right, but it's also important to get the tasks done on time. So if you want if you want to check whether your person whether the person who's applying to your company is going to be able to complete these tasks on time, then you must give him an assignment at the beginning itself, while he's in the process, or while you're in the recruitment process, so that you're able to check whether if he's the right person, if he's able to deliver within those tight deadlines. The third is don't look at their CV, but instead ask them what type of challenges they've faced in their lives and how they've overcome these challenges. Now CVs have a very limiting kind of format, in the sense where they can just tell them about the kind of work they've done in the past, and not even the kind of work they've done in the past, but the kind of companies they've worked for in the past, and what their roles and responsibilities were, which are just very vague terms which don't really lead to a lot. So if it's in 2019, if you're looking at CVs and you're thinking that that's the right way to hire people, or if you're putting CV filters, then you're missing out on a lot of great talent. The thing is, let people come in and have a face-to-face connect with them, and then understand what kind of challenges they faced, and what kind of ways they were able to solve those challenges, because then they were able to understand if they're able to come up with unconventional solutions or quick solutions to problems, and these are the kind of people you really want in your organization. And the fourth is check for empathy and how sensitive they are. Now, when you check for empathy, there are multiple tests for empathy. So you're able to check, whether they're able to understand the problems of your customer or the problems of the other team members. So that's why it's important to understand whether they have empathy. And all great leaders have a great amount of empathy, because since they're able to put themselves in the other's shoes, they're able to understand what kind of things that the people would require. So these are the kind of people who would grow with the organization, and who would you could probably keep them for a higher position later on. They'll grow in your organization, right? Now, why you want to check for sensitivity is because if they're very low on the sensitivity scale, then they probably borderline sociopath or psychopath, wherein they don't understand what's going on with the other people, or with the customers. And also they might not feel very very attached to the work they're doing. If they're sensitive, like moderately sensitive, then they'll care about the work they're doing, they'll put in a lot, they'll be sincere. But if they're overly sensitive, that's also a problem, because then they won't be able to take in critical feedback, which is very important for a startup culture. Now, the fifth point is, don't hire an ex-corporate. In the sense, if you're hiring somebody from IBM or from a big company like Procter and Gamble and Reckitt Beckensur and any of these companies, it's going to be a big problem, because these people have been trained to work under particular processes and systems. They can't work in a chaotic environment at all. They will go crazy on the first day when you bring them to a startup, because in your company there won't be any processes. Everything will be changing rapidly on a day's time, right? So that's what startups are famous for, changing things and changing plans and improvising. They won't be able to fit in with that culture. I mean, not in a in a common scenario, but there could be people who are still able to switch over from a corporate to a startup, but that's a very low percentage of people. And also these people would be wanting to charge you a lot of money as well. Now the sixth point, it's a great strategy to hire from other startups or from your direct competitors, because now if you hire from companies that you're trying to emulate, who are a few steps ahead of you, and you want to hire from those people from those companies, it's a very very good idea, because they already know what's going to happen eventually, as in all these people are already well trained, and they also know how the life cycle of this company is going to turn out to be. So they already know, they have already been through these steps. And they're also able to get a lot of information to your company, which you would need to grow. So it's a very very good idea to hire from these kind of companies, right? Now seventh is, have tight contracts with the employees. Now 1 month in a startup is almost equivalent of spending a complete year in a regular company, like a corporate company, because of the amount of information that you're being bombarded with and the amount of work that you have to do, right? So this means that in a very short amount of time, your employees get to have a lot of information about how the industry works, or how your company is particularly working. This also means that it's going to take that long to train another employee if this employee leaves. So that's why I have like very very strong contracts, so that your employees are not able to leave you and go very easily. Now the eighth is, train your employees really well and document everything in the company, so that whenever they leave, you have something, you have everything in place. So that's why it's very very important to train them, to document everything, so that you have everything in place at least. Now the ninth point is, always be pipelining. No matter how great your employees are, no matter how stable the company is going, no matter how much in love they are with their workplace, always be pipelining, because you're going to get into a lot of trouble if any of those important assets of your companies leave. And it's very hard to find the right people in the right period of time. So keep people on hold, in the sense, take their interviews, keep them on hold, so that whenever somebody leaves in the organization, you're able to quickly replace that person. Now the 11th point is, assess your company's culture and find talent that fits well into it. So assess the company's culture, and in a sense understand whether the people in your company are very aggressive, or are they people who think a lot before taking any decisions, or people who work really hard. So understand all of this, and then try to find people who would fit into this organization, into this culture. Or if you want to change the culture slowly of your company, then find the people who would take your company's culture in a more positive place. Now the 12th is, attract talent rather than looking for it. So you can look for talent by going to colleges and going to different this job searching websites and all of that stuff. But instead you have to attract them, right? Attract these people by showing them by posting videos on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram about how great your company culture is, and how much the people who are working in your organization are enjoying this. So have that, so that people get attracted, they apply on their own. So you have a huge pool of resources to or talent to tap in from. The 13th part is, take help of freelance headhunters. Now these guys, they save a lot of time, because that's their job from morning to night, right? So even if you have recruiters in house, it's very very wise to take help of all these external headhunters, because they are able to find you the right talent in very small amount of time. Now the 14th point, I know I said that we have only 13 now, but we have a 14th point as well. So get your the employees that are already working with you, ask them to get their friends to join the organization. So there are three main ways by which you can hire, right? Three important points. One is hire by references, in the sense people you meet somewhere, hired or reference from a friend or something like that. Then hire friends of friends, and then hire the friends of your employees. So these three are really, really critical. And if you're able to hire these people, then it's very beneficial for you, because if you hire from references, that means the reference it's coming from, it's kind of almost the person who's going to come from that reference is going to be representing that person, and is going to be kind of on the similar psychological level of that person. And if you hire an employee's friend, that and that employee is great, right? So as you have heard, that birds of a feather flock together. So if if that employee is great, and if he's recommending a friend, always make space for that person in your company. And so these are the main things. And also one more thing that you could do is go to events and look for great talent. So people who you really find great to interact with, and you really like the energy or the aura of somebody, bring that person on board, because in that case you're following your gut, and that's a great place to be when hiring for a startup. Thanks. I hope this video was very, very informational, and this is going to really help you hire better for your company, that's for sure. And if you need any more of these tips, and you need more information, head over to our website, designintech.co, and read more articles there. And I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.